Hello BookTube, my name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. Just you wait, Henry Higgins, just you wait. You'll be sorry, but your tears will be too late. You'll be broken, I'll have money. Will I help you? Don't be funny. And I've got no rhythm. 4 books to get through today on my Friday reads. I'm recording from work on Thursday, so I'm going to try and upload at work because it goes much quicker than when I upload from home. So that's why I'm here. 4 books to get through. 2 of them I want to talk about quite a bit, including Colson Whitehead's Harlem Shuffle. So stay tuned for that if you're interested. So of the 4 books I finished this week, this is the first. This is Telefon by Walter Wager, and this is originally released in 1975 as a US made into a movie, clearly with that's Charles Bronson, Lee Remick there, and according to the back, Donald Pleasance was also in it. We like Donald Pleasance because when I was about 8 or 9 years old, the woman who came to live with us and help out my mum out with the fact that we were young kids, lived down the road to Donald Pleasance, so she always used to talk about Donald Pleasance, and I think she was good friends with Donald Pleasance's daughter, who I seem to remember was called Lucy for no reason. So whenever I see Donald Pleasance's name, he was always in creepy movies, and if you know who Donald Pleasance is, except in The Great Escape where he was the tragically going blind. Anyway, whenever I see Donald Pleasance, I always think of Angela and Carol, who lived down the road to Donald Pleasance in Selsey, I believe. Anyway, by the by, this is a Cold War spy thriller where the protagonist is a Russian. So that's the Charles Bronson character is playing a Russian assassin who is sent by the Kremlin to America because some old Cold War plot is coming to fruition and the Russians are trying to stop it. So there was planted sleeper agents, hypnotized sleeper agents all over America, and some dissident Russian has escaped Russia with the plans and the details of all these sleeper agents and is slowly awakening them, and they, as soon as they get the code word and they wake of their 20-year trance and they go off and commit some terrible atrocity. He is sent, the Russian assassin is sent over to assume this urbane American identity. He also happens to be a big fan of Frank Sinatra and American hamburgers, and this is the local Russian agent who he meets in America, and she's there to help him out, and plot ensues. Terrific little, this was under 200 pages, pacey, some good scenes, a lot of chasing the guy. The guy who's operating Project Telefon and waking the sleeper agents could be anywhere, so our assassin has to crisscross the country and try and find him. Yeah, pretty good stuff. Was quite fun, and I like these the sort of 70s aesthetic. This is written in 75, and I don't mind every now and then dipping into that sort of 70s spy thing because it's fun. So that is Telefon by Walter Wager. After that, I read this one is called Joker Endgame. So this is actually, I've been, if you've seen previous episodes, you'll see I've been reading the entire Scott Snyder run on Batman, and I've got the whole set in 10 volumes in these lovely hardbacks. Now, these go for, this one would have been $30 new, or like probably 23, 24 pounds, and I don't pay anywhere near that. I bought these all second-hand, collected the entire edition, often unread, but at worst very lightly read, second-hand for maybe £5, £6, £7 each, and I got the entire run of 10. So I read the first 6 and I'm up to number 7. I had also bought, because looking on Goodreads, Goodreads had called this book 7.5. So it had the run of 10 volumes of this Scott Snyder run on Batman and said this was 7.5. So I thought, well, I'll get this as well because, why not? I saw it and I bought it. What I didn't realise at the time was the entirety of volume 7 out of that run of 10 is also included in this. So 7.5 is probably, maybe, I thought this was going to be all stories around those issues, but it is all stories around those issues of this particular storyline, which was called Endgame, but it also includes those particular issues which are in volume 7. So for whatever reason, I have volume 7. It's actually still sealed in plastic, factory sealed, so I kept that, put it on the shelf, and read this. So it has everything that's in volume 7 and some extra stuff. Okay, that's a lot of hoo-ha to say that this Endgame story wasn't really my cup of tea. It's a Joker story. it's a nastier Joker story than we've been used to, or at least I've been used to recently, where Joker's sociopathic violence and just all-round nastiness in this instance is bolstered by, I would imagine, sort of a Nobel Prize-winning level of chemistry, where he is able to adapt his traditional Joker venom, which is the poison he uses, and poisons people with, so that they die with this terrible rictus laughing, or whatever, Joker gas, it's gold, or whatever, Joker venom, and it's a pretty gruesome thing, trope that we've seen all the way through, I think, for the last few years. If he gets you in the face, or you breathe in the Joker gas, and as you die, unable to stop this really eerie grin on your face. Anyway, in this version, Joker has gone away for a couple of years and disappeared, partly because he cut off his own face, which I didn't really follow that story, but this is the comeback after that whole Joker cut off his own face, which was a death of the family. I think that was a storyline which I haven't really followed or read. Death in the Family was the original killing of Jason Todd by the Joker, so they redid that as Death of the Family, which is Joker trying to break up the Batman family, which is now a thing. There's Batman and Batgirl, and there's like 3 or 4 different Robins, and all the peripheral Alfred Pennyworth the Butler, and they talk often of the Batman family, and Death of the Family was the attempt to try and break that up. And then Endgame is Joker's return, after he cut off his own face, sliced it off, and it's hanging in the police station. It's all pretty grim. Anyway, he's sort of a world-class chemist now, because he's developed a Joker a toxin that targets everyone specifically and individually. So Batman gets attacked by the entire Justice League, which is Wonder Woman, who is a demigod, I think, Aquaman, who is king of the seas, and each one of them had a specific version of the Joker venom to get them, including, of course, a person who isn't even human, but is an alien, and that is what Superman looks like when he's taken a full dosage of Joker venom. It's pretty scary. So that's the story, and as I say, it's pretty nasty, and a lot of people get murdered, and then there's an ending. Now the other, so that was running through the main Batman comic, and then there are peripheral issues. So we've got here stories with so Endgame, there was Arkham Manor Endgame, which is a story set in Arkham Asylum about some escaped convicts who think they're going to find the Joker. There's a Batgirl, there's Batman Annual, Detective Comics Endgame, and Gotham Academy. I didn't much care for all those peripheral bits. I could probably have just read Volume 7, but seeing as I had this sort of extended volume, and it's Joker Endgame anyway, this will go on the shelf next to that. I was really excited about the Scott Snyder run at the beginning. I thought all the Court of Owls stuff and the whole mythology of Gotham was super exciting, and I'm coming to the end of it now. I've got 3 more volumes, 8, 9, and 10, and I'm kind of over it, but I've got them, so I'll read them anyway. Okay. Yes. All I want is a room somewhere. I have got for you next a book which I started reading as I thought I would read. It was kind of a callback. I grew up with My Fair Lady, the film. I saw the play back in the 70s in London. I think my sister was a massive fan of My Fair Lady, so we went for her birthday to see it with Tony Britton. That's Fern's dad, if you're a young British millennial, playing Henry Higgins, and a woman called Liz Robertson, who then married, I think, Alan J. Lerner, who was the lyricist of the musical My Fair Lady. Anyway, one second, let me just blow my nose. Anyway, so a long-term love of My Fair Lady, and decided that I really should go back at some point and read the original source material, which is George Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion. Interesting layout on this Penguin Classic. So I picked up this Penguin Classic from eBay, and I don't mind just having the surname there, and also on the spine, but it does and then on the back they call it, this is part of the Bernard Shaw Library. It does kind of make it look like his name was Bernard Shaw. It's unfortunate, because the second name is also a first name. But did he go by George? Did people call him Bernard? Like when we talk about, we call him Shaw, we don't call him Bernard Shaw. They talk about Shavian styles. So I need to understand whether Bernard was a middle name. Is it part of his last name? If he was because I think I've seen him written as G.B. Shaw before, and I'm usually referred to as Shaw, not Bernard Shaw. Anyway, I don't understand what the Bernard part is of George Bernard Shaw. If someone can enlighten me in the comments who knows more about it. I've never read George Bernard Shaw before, or Bernard Shaw, or Shaw. But we've always known that his play, Pygmalion, was the basis of My Fair Lady. So this is a play from the early 20s, late teens. 1 second. I should have... Play first produced in London, New York, 1914. So I guess I just had in my head that this was going to be a sort of stuffy classical retelling, and that the movie would have updated the whole thing. I thought there may be a Eliza Doolittle in here and a Henry Higgins, but I wasn't quite prepared for how faithful it turns out that the movie is to the play. And as a it's such a stupid thing, I'm the person who's always telling people who love movies, oh, you really should read the book. And I guess I kind of put plays not in the same category, because plays are not books. But I was not prepared for how closely the musical movie is aligned with the play. Some of the lines in this play appear exactly as I know them in the movie. I'm a good girl, I am, and the mangling of vowels that Henry Higgins jumps on when he first sees her. It's a just terrific bit of work, very witty, really, really enjoyable. This edition, I don't know if this is different to other editions of this play, but this is a full Penguin Classics. We have an introduction. There's a preface. I think by George Bernard Shaw. We also have in this edition an essay at the end where George Bernard Shaw writes what he thinks happened to Eliza and Freddie and Colonel Pickering and Henry Higgins after the end of the story, which is super fascinating. I guess one of the main differences between the play and the movie is that in the play it is made explicitly clear that Eliza and Henry Higgins are not are never destined to be romantically linked at all. That's not part of it, but there is a lot of play about class, about what it means to be raised out of your class and treating people differently based on the class, either because they are in a higher class than you or in a lower class than you, and the contrast between Pickering and Henry Higgins, where Pickering treats everybody, whether Duchess or flower seller, the same. In a way, so does Henry Higgins. He has equal disdain for Duchess and flower. He's just mean to everybody, whereas Pickering is nice to everybody and kind to everybody, and Eliza is the one who passes from flower girl to being able to pass herself off or to be passed off by others as a duchess. It's about transcending class. It's about the way language and the way we speak, what that says about us, and it's just a fine. It's not. I don't think it's a romantic comedy, but it's a fine comedy of class and people. The Alfred Doolittle character, Eliza's father, I think comes across much more clearly here than in the I'm getting married in the morning, and ding dong, the bells are gonna chime, the Stanley Holloway version. Here we see Doolittle going through genuine pains when he becomes a wealthy man, and what that means for the freedom he had as a man of no means versus how tied down he is now by his newfound wealth. That's brilliant and super funny. I think Henry Higgins' mother in this is a much more sympathetic character, and a genuine progressive, and her treatment of Eliza is admirable and loving and wonderful. And Eliza herself is just, I think, a much more interesting character rather than the mere invention of Henry Higgins, which Audrey Hepburn, I think, not Hepburn's finest performance. We know that her voice wasn't up to scratch and dubbed by Marnie Nixon in the movie. We know, of course, that Julie Andrews had originated the role of Eliza Doolittle in the Broadway production of My Fair Lady, but was deemed not famous enough to take on the role in the movie. I think both the main actors were nominated for Oscars. Hepburn was not. Cecil Beaton won an Oscar for his costume design. There were other Oscars, I think, for the score as well, and Audrey Hepburn was never nominated. While the same year, Julie Andrews, who had not been given the role because she was not famous enough, won an Oscar, was nominated for and won the Oscar for Mary Poppins. So that's a bit of Oscar crappy trivia. Oh, the other bit of Oscar trivia is, of course, that George Bernard Shaw is one of only two people in history who have won both an Oscar and the Nobel Prize for Literature. He won an Oscar for an early late 1920s movie of Pygmalion. And the other one, of course, is Bob Dylan, has Nobel Prize for Literature and an Oscar. Anyway, the point about this script is it's very cinematic. The stage directions are not typical play stage directions. Some of them are about, it's like a camera scanning past a landscape. You look out the window and he describes the buildings and the park and the things that you can't really recreate on stage. It's very cinematic, and there's also very, very close descriptions of the clothes that people are wearing, and Eliza's clothes from before, when she's a flower seller in Covent Garden, to as she is dressed as a lady. And then I think that sort of explains why someone like Cecil Beaton would be interested. He was involved in the Broadway production and in the movie. And because there's a very precise image that George Bernard Shaw is painting, and it's all in the original work. That's what I found fascinating. That things which I just assume are Hollywood embellishments find their basis in here. Both the language and say things that so the whole bit that we know from the movie that isn't in here is the Rocky training montage. It was not a Rocky training montage until Rocky, which is 30 years later. What I mean is the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. All the training of Eliza with the marbles in her mouth, and in Hertford, Hereford and Hampshire, hurricanes hardly ever happen. None of that is in here. We go directly from her being a gutter snipe to speaking like a lady, or at least we see there's one in between stage where she is invited to tea at Mrs. Higgins, along with the Eynsford Hills, including Freddie. I have often walked down this street before, but the pavement's always been beneath my feet before. And who obviously is smitten with Eliza. Anyway, it's enough of my mooning on about My Fair Lady, which I love. I now also love George Bernard Shaw's source material, Pygmalion, because this was just terrific, chock full of really good stuff, deeply cinematic in a way that's surprising to me for a work written in 1917, perhaps unsurprising given that he contributed to the screenplay, which won him an Oscar in 28, I think. But really, really good, properly funny, laugh out loud, funny. Sometimes the stuff that I knew and remembered from the film, and sometimes original interactions between Higgins and Pickering, between Eliza, everything about it, and Alfred Doolittle. Everything pops on the page of the script. I have never seen Pygmalion being performed, and I think now I would go and see that as easily as I would go and see another production of My Fair Lady, because this was terrific. And also this edition has a bunch of illustrations. It actually says, I should say who the illustrations are by, because it does say somewhere. Oh, I've forgotten where it was. It says the name of it. Oh, gosh. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of illustrations. That's Alfred Doolittle before he becomes wealthy. But there's lots and lots of illustrations. This is obviously from the evening where she gets passed off, where Eliza passes off as a duchess, and the triumphant evening that ends with Henry Higgins washing his hands of her. And just terrific drama, terrific play, funny, moving, and with the supplementary material in this particular edition, I was absolutely thrilled. So, Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw. And then the last book I read this week was one that I showed that came onto my TBR last week because it arrived in the post, Colson Whitehead's Harlem Shuffle. I wanted to bring, and I don't have. So I've read 4 other Colson Whitehead books. So let me tell you my history with Colson Whitehead, and then we'll talk a little bit about this. So I read way back when, because he was, when I first heard the name, I read a book called The Intuitionist by Colson Whitehead, which is a very odd story about a woman who fixes elevators. And it was an odd little novel, and it was the kind of thing I'd pick up, and maybe he was on one of those 30 under 30 lists or whatever it was, but he was a name, and I read it, and it's one of those things that I call an investment read. You know, I hear a name, you know, you kind of reading between the lines of the way the author is being talked about, you think, this is someone to watch. You know, it's not all these phrases are meaningless, and I understand that, but that was the kind of impression. It wasn't that this is, you know, breakout work, first ever great thing, and I don't think it was his first novel, by the way, but it was like, this name is someone to watch, and he is producing work. So I read The Intuitionist, and it, you know, I liked it, and then I didn't read more because I think soon after that, I think either his next book or maybe I missed it. At some point, he produced a book which was a zombie thriller, and that threw me because A, I don't want to read scary books, and B, it sort of gave me an excuse. Well, okay, that's why I'm not reading Colson Whitehead, because he's operating on a level that he's you know, eclectic and fine, fair enough, but not for me. And then there's another book in there also, I think Sag Harbor, I think it's called, which sounds like the kind of thing I may go back at some point and read Sag Harbor. Anyway, jump forward a number of years, and the news hits that Colson Whitehead's next book is being picked by the sort of defunct and maybe reviving itself Oprah book club. So this is not in Oprah's heyday where she had a new pick every month and each one went on to sell millions. I think Jonathan Franzen more next month kind of buried that to some extent, but this was, you know, occasionally Oprah still picks a book, and usually they're big hits. Anyway, the news was out. She picked the new book by Colson Whitehead. It was The Underground Railroad. I think at the time this was big news that the novel was released a week earlier. As a result, you know, the news broke. I think it wasn't supposed to have broken, but suddenly everyone knew that was going to be the next book, and the publishers rushed it into the shops a week ahead of time, which was kind of exciting. Anyway, at some point in all the hubbub around the Underground Railroad, I picked up in hardback, so I must have been wanting to jump on the moving train, and it is, without doubt, an astonishing piece of work. And if you haven't, all those who are talking about Colson Whitehead's new book, or who didn't read that but read The Nickel Boys, or whatever relationship you have to Colson Whitehead, The Underground Railroad will, I think, be his defining to date, before and since is rightly considered his defining work. It is an outstanding novel. It doesn't need me to sell it to anybody. But if you haven't read it, if you keep talking about it but you read other things because you want to stay current, stop. I love Harlem Shuffle, and I liked The Nickel Boys very much. I would say read The Underground Railroad. You'll read these as well if you want, if you don't want, but don't sleep on that. Go and read The Underground Railroad and understand why it's a book worth reading, like Life of Pi, like Salvage the Bones, like any of these modern novels, which, you know, have a moment and people talk about them and think, and then you might, there's too much hype, and I went, forget that now, the hype's died down, go read The Underground Railroad. Okay, enough about that, we're not talking about that. So I read The Underground Railroad. I also read his non-fiction book about playing in the Poker World Series, because I kind of like poker, and I've read a couple of poker books, and there was a Colson Whitehead book, and it was going cheap, and I picked it up. And then I read The Nickel Boys, which I also bought new in hardback, so I'm on the Colson Whitehead, fully on the Colson Whitehead train, moving up towards first class to pick up the books in hardback, and read The Nickel Boys since it came out, and I liked it very much. I don't think it has the power of The Underground Railroad, but it has its own specificity, and there's an interesting format, and a wrong footing, which pays off, and I think it's a fine piece of work. Okay, now his new book came out this month. I don't know how years ago. It took a while for it to get here from America for me. So this is the US edition of Colson Whitehead's Harlem Shuffle. Sells for $28.95 new. I paid whatever the Amazon discount for that was, $16-17, and free shipping to Israel. Anyway, this is a whole different kind of beast to either the Underground Railroad or The Nickel Boys. This is a story set in Harlem over 3 distinct periods, so 3 different stories, all set with the same characters in the same place. And place here is what's going on. The book is called Harlem Shuffle. These people are shuffling through Harlem. The characters get shuffled around within Harlem, but we are set in Harlem. I think originally the first story is set in 1958. The main character that we're following is a chap called Ray Carney. He is an orphan now. His mother died when he was young. His father, who was, by all accounts, a petty thief involved in some various capers over the years, and therefore has a name amongst the criminal fraternity in Harlem. But Ray is trying to do things the right way, and he has built a business. It's a furniture store in Harlem, black-owned, serving the black community of Harlem, selling furniture, because this is a time where lives are starting to improve. People are renting homes, are buying furniture, buying side tables, buying bedroom furniture, and Ray is there providing them with what they need, with good rates and extended loans and payment plans. He is serving his community, and he very much sees himself as having a responsibility within this community to serve it. There's a point very early on where he thinks he's not going to offer payment plans anymore because people get behind and he has to chase them down. He doesn't want to get involved in chasing debts, and he knows what that's like. He remembers his father being sent out as a debt collector and having to sometimes follow through on threats, and he is trying to not be his father. And then a young couple come in. The wife is heavily pregnant, and they really only come in to sit down, and he eventually persuades them and makes a sale of a sofa which they just fall in love with, and gives them very good terms and a good payment plan, and says to himself he's pleased he didn't tell his other salespeople that he was going to stop payment plans. He has a wife and a young child at this early stage when we first meet Ray. He also has a ne'er-do-well cousin, Freddie. And Freddie, when I say ne'er-do-well, I mean ne'er. Absolutely ne'er. And which was fine when they were kids and they got in trouble and could get out of scrapes. Not so great when they're a little bit older. I don't want to go into too much I've already gone in way too much of the plot, but I'm going to give you the characters. What we're talking about is so the first story, there is a heist. Somehow Ray is involved as a fence for some of the goods. That he does a little bit on the side. He doesn't want to see himself as crooked, maybe a little bit bent, but not all the way crooked. He uses sometimes the proceeds from little bits of criminal thing that he touches, because he's got a contact where he can sell TVs that have somehow come into the hands of the people that bring him into the shop. Maybe it's not clear where ownership comes from, but he has somewhere else where he can pass around. So he becomes kind of a middleman. That's Ray's role. He's trying to be straight. He's trying to have a straight business, but occasionally he acts as a middleman for some criminal things. In the first story, there was a huge robbery that Ray is not involved with, but Freddie is, and somehow Ray's name gets mentioned, and somehow some of the proceeds of the robbery are supposed to pass through Ray and be fenced by him. So the first story is about him getting into trouble, getting out of trouble, trying to avoid dragging his family down, trying to avoid getting dragged down into this mire of criminal activity, which he kind of believes he doesn't really want to. But he's just a man, and he's a middleman, and somehow that story is resolved. The second and third stories of the next two parts, and each one is a 300-page book, each one is about 100 pages. The second part, we jump forward in time. Ray's doing a little bit better, and but someone does him dirty. And what follows is an elaborate and expensive plot to exact revenge on the man who wronged him. And it shows a darker side of Ray, a willingness to compromise his ideals, because there is a higher ideal of don't let anyone take anything from you. And it's my favourite of the three stories. And then the last third of the book, Freddie comes back and again is in trouble. He it's still near done well, but Ray's loyalty to his cousin which is one of the constants all the way through, that loyalty to family, that belief in you don't talk to the cops, you don't really deal with white people if you can avoid it, but you accept what happens in your community, and you love your community, and you support your family. And again, that story resolves itself for better or for worse. 3 separate linked tales. I don't think you would call each one like a short story. It's not. The thread flows cleanly all the way through it as we see Ray Carney evolve. Everything. Harlem is at the heart of all of this. Each of the stories that I'm trying not to get too plotty about are about life in Harlem, about being black in the time 1958 through 1964, what that means. This is not a story of black people being oppressed by white people. This is not a looking up, oh, if only I could get out from under the white man. No, this is about black community and black family, and everything that Harlem represented to the people that lived there at the time, and that sense of community, and that sense that they were going to, as a community, bring themselves up and achieve everything they could, and that's right. There's an optimism and that runs through this, that heart of black entrepreneurship, black-owned business, black-owned businesses, that is at the very heart of this, and something that makes it so entirely contemporary. If that hasn't been clear from what I've been saying, that despite the fact this is set in the time between 1958 and 1964, there is nothing in this which is not relevant for 2021. Colson Whitehead is not a silly man. He's a very, very smart contemporary novelist. He's using tropes of noir fiction, crime fiction, and as somebody who reads probably as much crime fiction as I read literary fiction, I would say this is equally loyal to both of those entirely arbitrary and useless, uselessly narrow genres. Did I Frenchify that? Say genre when I meant the plural. Sorry. It's just terrific. Is it in the same league as the Underground Railroad? No, but very little in the world is. Read Colson Whitehead. I know I'm going to be reading Colson Whitehead for a long time, and having rewards like this amongst, and I've had a great year. I mean, if you've been watching these videos, you'll know that I've had a great year with new fiction, mostly authors that I have read before, but still, it's been a really, really enjoyable year for reading 2021 novels and 2020 novels, catching up to 2020 novels and reading 2021 novels. This absolutely continues this. It's a riot. It's terrific. It's noirish. It's literary, and it's super, super smart. That is Harlem Shuffle by Colson Whitehead. Read Colson Whitehead. That's my tip-top advice for you. Colson Whitehead, Harlem Shuffle. Okay, that's that. I think I sang almost every song from My Fair Lady. Is there anything I missed? And so next I'm going to read, I haven't even started this yet, but this is my Going to the Weekend, Laura by Vera Kaspari. This was a Duncan McCready recommendation a while ago now. I've only been on BookTube for a year yet, but I think very early days he mentioned having read this, and I ordered this, and this is a sort of vintage reprint. This is from 1942, female written noir. Coincidence that Colson Whitehead, which I assumed was going to be sort of literary fiction, and it's very much in the sort of, there's not a debt to Walter Mosley because they're writing in a different register, but it's, I think, I just read a Walter Mosley last week to come to this was they're cousins, let's say, and this is also noirish, but female written in the 40s. So while Colson Whitehead's book is based 58 to 60, we're going a bit earlier. This is classic noir, I hope. Another short one. 170 pages or so I should be able to whiz through this over Shabbat, and probably also take on either John Lahiri or Sally Rooney. I will decide as the mood takes me. I hope you had a great week. God bless. Take care. Have a good weekend. Bye.